Portrait of a Lady, written by Khushwant Singh. Introduction. Khushwant Singh, born in 2nd February 1915, is a prominent Indian English writer and a journalist. His weekly column, with malice towards one and all, carried by several Indian newspapers, is among most widely read columns. He is well known as Indian literary history as one of the finest historians and novelists, a foremost political commentator, and outstanding observer and a critic of social life. So, who is Khushwant Singh? Khushwant Singh was born on 2nd February 1915. He is a prominent English writer and a journalist too. So, do you enjoy your grandmother's company or grandparents' company? Are they good companions? Children grow up with a typical image of their grandparents in their mind, and any other thought is almost revolting to them. So, what does it mean? That when children grow up, they usually set a particular impression about their grandparents, that they actually look the same even they are old or they are young. So any other thoughts, like if someone's grandmother is full of wrinkles on her face, so that child probably thinks that before also she had wrinkles. And if someone comes and tell that child that no, your grandmother was pretty, she once was very beautiful, so thinking and imagining her being beautiful and pretty is a critical thing for that child. So what is written in this chapter? My grandmother, like other grandmother, was an old woman. She had been old and wrinkled for 20 years that I had known her. People said that she had once been young and pretty and had even had a husband. But that was hard to believe. So, what does the author say here? He says that my grandmother, since I know her, she was an old lady. She had wrinkles all over her face for over 20 years. But people say that she was once very pretty and also had a husband too. But it is hard to believe because my grandfather's portrait hung over the mantelpiece in the drawing room. So what is mantelpiece? Mantelpiece is a shelf. So what does he says? The author says that his grandfather portrait is kept above the shelf of his drawing room. He wore a big turban and a loose-fitting clothes. His long white beard covered the best part of his chest, and he looked at least 100 years old. He did not look the sort of person who would have a wife or children. He looked as if he could only have lots and lots of grandchildren. As for my grandmother being young and pretty, the thought was almost revolting. She often told us the games she used to play as a child that seemed quite dignified on her part, and we treat it like the fables of the prophets she used to tell us. So what happens? What is the description of the grandfather here? The description is the grandfather has a long beard, wearing loose-fitting clothes like turbans, and he looks as if 100 years old man who can have no wife, no child, but can have lots and lots of grandchildren. So, the stories of the games that the grandmother play used to tell to the author, but the author treats it like the fables. Fables means the story of the prophets or the saints. She had always been short and fat and slightly bent. Her face was a crisscross of wrinkles running from everywhere to everywhere. No, we were certain she had always been, and as we had known her. So what does author says here? The description of grandmother is that she was short, fat and slightly bent. Her face was a crisscross running from everywhere to everywhere, that she has wrinkles all over her face. She so terribly old that she could not have been grown older, and had stayed at the same age for 20 years. She could never have been pretty, but she was beautiful. So what does author says here? She was from her starting days. When author had seen her, she was so terribly old that there was no chance of getting more older. And stayed at the same age for over 20 years. So author says that his grandmother had stayed for over 20 years at the same age. She could never have been pretty, but she was always beautiful. So, what he says, what is the difference between pretty and beautiful? So, pretty means the external beauty of a person. Okay, how much a person is externally beautiful? And beautiful actually means the inner beauty of a person. The inner beauty, how much kind, what nature. So the author says that his grandmother is internally very beautiful rather than external beauty. She hobbled about the house in spotless white with one hand resting on her waist to balance her stoop and the other telling the beads of rosary. Her silver locks were scattered untidily over her pale, puckered face, and her lips constantly moved in the inaudible prayer. So, what happens? She hobbled about the house means she used to move in the house in an awkward manner. Then she used to walk in an awkward manner in spotless white. She used to wear a spotless white sari with one hand resting on her waist to balance her stoop. One hand should rest on her waist to balance her stoop, and the other tells the rose beads of the rosary. Her silver locks were scattered untidily over her face, which means that her silver locks means her silver colored hair. As she was too old, so her hairs grew silver in color. So his hairs are tied means unproperly means not properly, and were scattered over her face. Puckered means squeezed, wrinkle full of face, and her lips were constantly moving with inaudible prayer. Yes, she was beautiful. She was like the winter landscape in the mountain. Like the winter falls over the mountain and the peak of the mountain appears white, she was that much beautiful as expanse of pure white serenity, breathing peace and contentment. Mothers are generally affectionate, protective, and caring. My grandmother and I were good friends. My parents left me with her when they went to live in the city, and we were constantly together. She used to wake me up in the morning and get me ready for school. She said her morning prayer in a monotonous sing song while she bathed and dressed me in the hope that I would listen and get to know it by heart. So, what happens? That while the author's mother and father left him with his grandmother and they went for city for some work, so he used to be constantly with his grandmother. She used to wake him up to get ready for school, and she used to sing morning prayer daily with a sweet song, with a sweet sound, sweet tone or sweet voice, so that the author could by heart the morning prayer. But I listened because I loved her voice. So what does the author says? He listened to the song because she loved her voice, but never bothered to learn it. But the author never bothers of learning the morning prayer. Then she would fetch my wooden slate, which she had already washed and plastered with yellow chalk, a tiny earthen ink pot, and a reed pen, tie them all in a bundle, and hand it to me. After the breakfast of a thick stale chapati with a little butter and sugar spread on it, we went to school. She carried several stale chapatis with her for the village dogs. So, what happens? So she used to make the author ready for the school, and she used to give her the slates ready, the chalks ready, the ink pots, and the reed pens before they were writing on the reed pens. Okay, so the author's grandma used to wash the slates, pack all the slate, chalks, and ink pot, reed pens all together, and give to the author to carry for school. She used to feed her with the stale chapatis, the leftover chapatis with butter and sugar, and carry more stale chapatis with her to feed the street dogs. My grandmother always went to school with me because the school was attached to the temple. The priest taught us the alphabets and the morning prayer, while the children sat in a row on either side of the veranda saying the alphabets or the prayers in a chorus. My grandmother sat inside reading the scriptures. When we had both finished, we would walk back together. This time, the village dogs would meet us at the temple door. They follow us to our home, growling and fighting with each other for the chapatis we threw to them. So, what happens? Now, the grandma used to go with the author always to the school just because the school was attached to the temple. She used to go there, sit inside the temple, and read the scriptures or the holy books. And the author used to learn all the kinds of alphabets and morning prayer by the priest. So all the children sit on the veranda, and in a group they used to say all the alphabets and sing the morning prayer. So, while returning to the home, the grandma and the grandson used to feed the street dogs, and the street dogs follow them to their house so that they can get the chapatis, and they fight and growl among themselves to eat the chapatis. In the village is quite different from city life. Family relationship also changes, identities are modified. When my parents are comfortably settled in the city, they sent for us. That was a turning point in the friendship. Although we shared the same room, my grandmother no longer came to school with me. I used to go to English school in a motor bus. There were no dogs in the street, and she took to feeding sparrows in the courtyard of our city house. So, what happened? Life in the village is very much different than life in the cities. What happens? So, as the grandmother was going to school to leave him at the school, but here in the city, it does not happen. The author was going in a motor bus to his school, and he was going to a English school. There was no priest or no temples there. So the grandmother was not at all interested to go to school with him. And there were no dogs on the street so that he could feed also. So life changed very much when he came to city house. As the year rolled by, as the time passed, we saw less of each other. So the connection became weaker between the grandmother and the grandson. For some time, she continued to wake me up and get me ready for school. When I came back, she could ask me what the teacher had taught me. I would tell her English words and little things of Western science and learning, the law of gravity, Archimedes' principle, the world being round, etc. This made her unhappy. She could not help me in my lessons. So, what happened for few years? The grandmother helped the author by waking him up, making him ready for school. When she used to ask her what has been taught in your school, she used to listen all the disappointed answers. Like every answer, each and every answer used to be in English word or in science, like Archimedes' principle, the earth being round, and about the gravity. So his grandmother could not understand and used to be disappointed with him by hearing such English words. He did not believe in the things they taught at the English school and was distressed that there was no teaching about God and scriptures. One day I announced that we were being given music lessons. She was very disturbed. To her, music had lead association. It was the monopoly of harlots and beggars and not meant for general folk. She said nothing, but her silence meant disapproval. She rarely talked to me after that. So, what happens? So, she never used to believe whatever is taught in the English school because she doesn't trust it because there was no teaching about God and scriptures. Once, when the author announced in the house that he has been given music classes from his school, so his grandmother was more disappointed because she thinks that singing is a lead association. It is meant just for characterless peoples. All the bad peoples used to do that works and it is not meant for general folks. Okay. So when I went up to university, I was given a room of my own. The common link of friendship was snapped. My grandmother accepted the seclusion with resignation. She rarely left her spinning wheel to talk to anyone. From sunrise to sunset, she sat by her wheel, spinning and reciting prayers. Only in the afternoon she relaxed for a while to feed the sparrows, while she sat in the veranda breaking the bread into little bites. Hundreds of little sparrows collected round her, creating a veritable bedlam of chirpings. Some came and perched on her legs, some on her shoulders, some even sat on her head. She smiled but never shooed them away. It used to be the happiest half hour of her day. So, what happens? After that, the link between them broke. So, when the author went to university, he had been given a separate room to live. So, the common link between the friendship had broken. So, his grandmother used to, every day she used to sit on the chair, pray to God, chant all her prayers, and she used to spin the beads of the rosary, and she used to do all these things. And for the afternoon, that half an hour used to be very special for her grandmother because she used to rest at the afternoon time. What she does during her resting period, she used to feed the sparrows. She sit in the veranda, break the breadcrumbs into little pieces and throw around her. So a hundred of sparrows get collected in front of her. Some perch, some sit on her legs, some sit on her shoulders, some even sit on her head. But she never shoo them away because she loved the movement. You are already acquainted with the first three phases of the author's relationship with his grandmother. In the first phase, the grandmother looked after the author in the village, like the grandmother and the grandchildren were staying close to each other very much. They were taking care of themselves. The grandmother was taking care of her grandson very well, and he was physically very close to her. In the second phase, he was estranged from her and he went to the city school. So the connection became a bit weaker. The third phase, the common link of friendship between them snapped and he went to the university. Finally, when he went abroad for further studies, the last sign of physical contact between them was lost. So, what happened? When the author decided to go to the abroad for further studies, the author was sure. What was he sure of? I was sure my grandmother would be upset. I it would be I would be away for 5 years, and at her age, One would never grandmother could. She was not even sentimental. She came to leave me at the railway station but did not talk or show any emotion. Her lips moved in prayer. Her mind was lost in prayer. Her fingers were busy telling the beads of rosary. Silently she kissed my forehead, and when I left I cherished the moist imprint as perhaps the last sign of physical contact between us. So, here what happens when the author decided to go to abroad, he was sure that his grandmother would be upset, but actually, there was nothing like that. Even if he was going out for 5 years, his grandmother was not even crying or not even sentimental at all. She came to leave her at the railway station, and she had no other emotions. She was continuously praying. Her lips were continuously moving with the beats of rosary. She silently kissed the head of author and the forehead of the author, and it was the last physical contact between the author and his grandmother. But that was not so. After 5 years, I came back home and was met by her at the station. She did not look a day older. She still had no time for words, and while she clasped me in her arms, I could hear her reciting her prayer. Even on the first day of my arrival, her happiest moments were with her sparrows, whom she fed longer and with frivolous rebukes. So means what? When author arrived home after 5 years, he saw that her grandmother welcomed her at the railway station. She hugged her, and at that time also she did not look a day older. 5 years already went, but she was looking the same. And then she was not talking at all. She was reciting her prayers. Her lips were moving in prayers, which was audible to the author. In the evening, and the first day of his arrival, also, her favorite movement was feeding the sparrows only. In the evening, a change came over her. So, in the evening, a change came over her. What change? Now, she did not pray. She collected all the women of the neighborhood, got an old drum whose skin was already torn up and which was in bad condition, and started to sing. For several hours, she thumped the sagging skin of the dilapidated dilapidated drum and sang of the homecoming of the warriors. So, what happened? The grandmother had no change in her, but suddenly at the evening time, there was a change in her. She did not pray at that time. She was busy calling all the neighborhood women and started singing a song by beating drums. She sang for a long time of the homecoming warriors. We had to persuade her to stop to avoid overstraining. That was the first time since I had known her that she did not pray. The next morning she was taken ill. It was a mild fever, and the doctor told us that it would go. But my grandmother thought differently. She told us that her end was near. She said that since only a few hours before the close of the last chapter of her life, she had omitted to pray. She was not going to waste any more time talking to us. So, what does the grandmother say to the family members of the author? The next morning, she was taken ill. She was completely ill. The doctor came, treated her, and told that no, it is a mild fever. But she told, no, my end is near, and I don't want to waste my time by talking with you all. I want to pray. We protested, but she ignored our protest. So, all the family members protested, prohibited to pray, but she did not listen to anyone. She lay peacefully in the bed, praying and telling her beads. Even before we could suspect Her lips stopped moving and the rosary fell from her lifeless fingers. A peaceful pallor spread on her face, and we knew that she was dead. So, what happened? She was praying, and suddenly, what happened? Her lips stopped moving, and the beads of rosary fell from her hands. Okay, we lifted her off the bed and, as in customary, laid her on the ground and covered her with a red shroud. After a few hours of mourning, we left her alone to make arrangement for her funeral. So, what happened? After mourning a little, after crying, after sitting at her side for a few times, we left her alone. We left her body alone. The author and her family members left the grandma's body alone, and they went and did arrangement for the funeral. In the evening, we went to her room with a crude stretcher to take her body to be cremated. The sun was setting and had lit her room and veranda with a blaze of golden light. So, what happened in the evening when we went to her room with a crude stretcher? At that time, the sunlight just brightened the room with its golden light and the veranda. We stopped halfway in the courtyard. In the courtyard, we stopped all over the veranda and in her room, right up where she lay dead, stiff, wrapped in the red shroud. Thousands of sparrows sat scattered on the floor. So, what happened at that time where she was lying dead, wrapped with a red shroud? A thousand of sparrows were sitting just in front of the veranda where her dead body was laying. There were thousands of sparrows, and it is a surprise thing that they were not chirping at that time at all. So, the author's mother took pity on the sparrows and threw some bread crumbs, just like the grandmother used to break the breadcrumbs and threw at them. So she also did the same, but the sparrows took no notice on the breadcrumbs. When and after that, after they took the body of the grandmother, the sparrows silently flew away. So what happened? There was no chirping. We felt sorry for the birds, and my mother fetched some breads for them. She broke it into the little crumbs the way my grandmother used to throw to them. The sparrows took no notice of the bread. When we carried my grandmother's corpse off, they flew up away quietly. Next morning, the sweeper swept the breadcrumbs into the dustbin. The next morning, the sweeper came and swept out all the breadcrumbs on the floor into the dustbin. Thank you and have a nice day ahead.